Captain Jake Morrison stood at the viewing port of the massive alien ship, watching stars drift past in the endless black of space. The ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Its walls glowed with a soft blue light that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. 3 weeks ago, Jake had been commanding a simple patrol vessel near Earth's outer colonies. Now he was leading humanity's first official meeting with the most powerful species in the galaxy. The invitation had come as a shock to everyone on Earth. The Galactic Council wanted to meet with the humans. After 200 years of spreading across dozens of star systems, humanity was finally being recognized as a real civilization. Jake remembered the excitement in President Helen Davis's voice when she gave him this mission. "Make peace," she had said. "Show them we can be trusted." Jake turned away from the window and walked down the corridor toward the main conference room. His footsteps echoed strangely in the alien ship. The walls seemed to absorb sound in some places and amplify it in others. He had learned not to question how alien technology worked. Some things were beyond human understanding. Dr. Lisa Harper was already in the conference room when Jake arrived. She sat at the human side of the long table, reviewing her notes one more time. Lisa was Earth's best xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life forms. Her job was to help Jake understand the species they were about to meet. She looked up as Jake entered. "Still nervous about this?" Lisa asked with a small smile. "Every time I think about it," Jake replied. He sat down next to her. "3 species that have ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, and they want to talk. To us, it feels too good to be true." Commander Alex Turner entered the room, his military uniform crisp and perfect. Alex was Jake's security advisor, a man who had spent his career studying alien military tactics. He had insisted on coming along, despite the aliens' assurance that this was a peaceful meeting. "The Zephyrians are setting up their equipment now," Alex reported. "Their telepathic abilities make them nervous around technology they don't understand. Our recording devices are making them uncomfortable. Let them be uncomfortable," Jake said. "Earth needs to know what happens here." The conference room door opened with a soft hiss. 3 very different beings entered, each representing one of the galaxy's ruling species. Jake had seen pictures and videos, but seeing them in person was still startling. The Zephyrian was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow slightly. Its head was larger than a human's, with black eyes that held no visible pupils. When it looked at Jake, he felt a strange tickling sensation in his mind. The creature was trying to read his thoughts. The collective representative looked almost human, except for the silver cables that ran from its neck to a small device on its chest. Those cables connected it to billions of other minds across the galaxy. It never spoke for itself, only for the group. The ethereal was the strangest of all. It appeared as a shifting form of golden light, roughly human-shaped but constantly changing. Sometimes Jake could see what looked like a face in the glow, but it never stayed the same for long. The ethereal was ancient, older than human civilization by millions of years. "Welcome, humans," the Zephyrian said. Its voice was melodic, almost like singing. "I am Vextara, High Conductor of the Zephyrian Empire. We have been watching your species for some time. The collective acknowledges your presence," the human-like being said. Its voice was flat, emotionless. "We speak for 12 billion minds across 400 worlds." The ethereal's voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I am Luminara, first light of the ethereal domain. We have existed since your son was young." Jake stood up, trying to project confidence he didn't entirely feel. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison, representing the United Earth Alliance. With me are Dr. Lisa Harper, our xenobiologist, and Commander Alex Turner, our military advisor." "Military advisor?" Vextara's mental voice carried amusement. "How primitive. We left such concerns behind millennia ago." Lisa leaned forward. "We're honored to meet with you. Humanity has always dreamed of joining the galactic community." "Dreams are for children," the collective representative said. "We deal in reality. Your species has spread across 23 star systems in 2 centuries. This expansion concerns U.S. We've been careful to avoid worlds that were already claimed, Jake said. We only settled empty planets. Empty to you, perhaps, Luminara said. Your kind sees only what it can touch. There are layers of reality beyond your perception. The negotiations continued for hours. Jake quickly realized that the aliens weren't interested in making humanity an equal partner. They wanted to limit human expansion, control human technology, and basically turn humanity into a junior member of their club. We're willing to share our medical technology, Jake offered. Human doctors have made breakthroughs in treating genetic diseases. Your medicine is crude, Vexthara said. We can heal with thought alone. We could offer our agricultural techniques, Lisa suggested. We've learned to grow food in environments that other species can't use. The collective has no need for your farming methods, came the flat reply. We sustain ourselves through photosynthesis. Alex had remained quiet through most of the meeting, but Jake could see his jaw tightening. The aliens weren't just dismissing human offers, they were insulting them. Perhaps we should discuss trade routes, Jake said, trying to keep the conversation moving. Humanity has established shipping lanes that could benefit everyone. Your ships are slow and inefficient, Luminara said. We travel through dimensions you cannot imagine. The meeting went on like this for 3 days. Every human offer was rejected. Every suggestion was dismissed. The aliens made it clear that they saw humanity as nothing more than an annoyance. To be managed, on the 4th day, Jake's younger brother Danny Morrison arrived with 2 other diplomats. Danny was a skilled negotiator who had helped resolve conflicts between human colonies. He had volunteered for this mission, despite Jake's concerns about bringing family into such an important situation. Maybe fresh faces will help, Danny said. Privately to Jake, sometimes negotiations need new energy. But the aliens seemed even less interested in the new arrivals. Vexthara barely acknowledged Danny's presence. The collective representative didn't even look at him. Luminara's golden form flickered with what might have been annoyance. We grow tired of this pretense, Vexthara announced during the 5th day of talks. Your species offers nothing we need. Your technology is primitive. Your culture is violent. Your expansion threatens the stability we have maintained for millennia. We just want to coexist peacefully, Danny said. Surely there's room in the galaxy for all of us. Room? The collective spoke with unusual emotion. You consume resources, you breed without control, you spread like a disease across worlds that have been empty for good reason. Jake felt his temper rising. We're not a disease. We're explorers. We're trying to build something better. Better? Luminara's voice carried ancient disdain. You are children playing with fire. You don't understand the forces you're dealing with. Then teach us, Lisa said desperately. We're willing to learn. Some lessons can only be learned through suffering, Vexthara said. Perhaps it's time you understood your place in the galaxy. The Zephyrion made a gesture, and the room's lights suddenly dimmed. Alex reached for his weapon, but it was too late. Energy fields surrounded the 3 new human diplomats, including Danny. What are you doing? Jake shouted, jumping to his feet. Providing education, the collective said. Your species will learn to respect your betters. Jake watched in horror as the energy fields began to glow brighter. Danny's face contorted in pain, but he couldn't move or speak. The other 2 diplomats suffered the same fate. Stop this, Jake demanded. They're diplomats, they're under protection. Protection? Luminara laughed, a sound like breaking glass. From whom? You? Your primitive weapons cannot harm us. Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. We need to get out of here, now. But it was too late. The energy fields flared bright white, and when the light faded, the 3 human diplomats were gone. Not just dead, completely erased, as if they had never existed. Jake stared at the empty space where his brother had been standing. His mind couldn't process what had just happened. Danny was supposed to be safe. This was supposed to be a peaceful meeting. Consider this a demonstration, Vexthara said calmly. Your species will accept our terms, or more demonstrations will follow. We will broadcast this across all human worlds so your people understand the consequences of defiance. Jake's hands shook as the reality hit him. The aliens hadn't invited humanity to join the galactic community. They had lured Earth's diplomats into a trap to make an example of them. You just made a terrible mistake, Jake said quietly. Did we? The collective asked. You have no power here? Your ships are outmatched, your weapons are useless. Your species will submit or it will be eliminated. Jake looked at Lisa and Alex. Both of them were staring at the empty space where Danny had been. The aliens had no idea what they had just done. They thought they were dealing with a primitive species that would fold under pressure. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I request a 48-hour recess, Jake said, his voice steady despite the rage building inside him. To consult with Earth leadership. The video feed from the alien ship reached Earth in 18 hours. President Helen Davis sat in the Situation Room, watching the footage for the third time. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands gripped the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles were white. Around the table sat the most powerful people in human space. Defense Secretary Ryan Brooks had already pulled up tactical displays showing every human military asset. Admiral Kate Sullivan commanded the Earth Defense Fleet. General Tom Hayes ran the Colonial Marine Corps. Dr. Sam Parker headed the Science Division. Each of them had watched 3 human diplomats die for no reason except to make a point. How many people have seen this? Helen asked quietly. The aliens broadcast it across all human colonies, Ryan said. Every news network, every communication channel, every data stream. They wanted to make sure everyone saw it. And what's the reaction? Admiral Sullivan leaned forward. Recruitment centers are flooded. People are lining up around the block to join the military. We've had more volunteers in the past 12 hours than in the past year. The factory workers on Mars are asking for overtime shifts, General Hayes added. They want to build warships. The miners in the asteroid belt are offering to work double shifts for free. Helen stood and walked to the window. She could see crowds gathering in the streets below. People weren't running away in panic. They were angry. Angrier than she had ever seen them. What do our allies say? She asked. The Centauri colonies are mobilizing their entire fleet, Ryan replied. The Vega system is converting their merchant ships into military vessels. Even the peaceful settlements on Kepler are asking what they can do to help, Dr. Parker spoke up. We're getting reports from our research stations. Scientists are abandoning their peaceful projects. They're asking to work on weapons development. Everyone wants to contribute. Helen turned back to the group. And Captain Morrison? Still aboard the alien ship, Admiral Sullivan said. He's requesting permission to begin Phase 2 of the plan. Helen nodded slowly. Jake Morrison was a good man, but more importantly, he was a smart man. The plan they had developed before the diplomatic mission was simple. If the aliens proved hostile, humanity would show them exactly what humans were capable of when pushed too far. Give him permission, Helen said. Tell him the full resources of humanity are behind him. On the alien flagship, Jake Morrison sat in his quarters staring at a photo of his brother Danny. The picture showed both of them as children, playing in their backyard on Earth. Danny had always been the peacemaker, the one who tried to find common ground. Now he was dead because the aliens saw human life as worthless. Lisa Harper sat across from him, her scientific equipment spread across a small table. She was no longer studying alien biology to understand them better. She was looking for weaknesses. Their energy systems are incredibly advanced, Lisa said, but they rely on crystal matrices that can be disrupted. The Zephyrians use their telepathic abilities to control their technology. If we can overwhelm their mental defenses, their ships become useless. Commander Alex Turner was cleaning his weapon, even though he knew it was useless against the aliens' energy shields. How long before Earth's response arrives? The first wave should be here in 6 hours, Jake replied. The main fleet will arrive in 18 hours. How big is the main fleet? Lisa asked. Jake smiled for the first time since Danny's death. Every ship humanity has ever built. Every weapon we've ever made. Every person who can hold a gun. On Earth, the response was unlike anything in human history. The planet's entire industrial capacity had been turned toward one purpose: war. Factories that made civilian goods were now producing weapons. Shipyards that built cargo vessels were assembling warships. Research labs that studied medicine were developing new ways to kill, but it wasn't just the military response that would have terrified the aliens if they had understood it. It was the unity. Humans who had been fighting each other for resources suddenly stood together. Political enemies worked side by side. Religious groups that had been in conflict for centuries prayed together for victory. Children too young to fight asked their parents when they could join the military. Elderly people who remembered the old wars came out of retirement to help. Artists created propaganda posters. Musicians wrote battle songs. Writers penned speeches about courage and sacrifice. The aliens had made a fatal mistake. They thought executing 3 humans would break humanity's spirit. Instead, they had given humanity something it had never had before, a common enemy that everyone could hate without reservation. Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance watching the final preparations. Around her, the largest fleet in human history prepared for battle. 200 warships, 500 support vessels, and 3,000 fighters. Every human colony had contributed something to this force. Admiral, her communications officer, called out, "We're receiving a transmission from Captain Morrison." Jake's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Lisa and Alex were working at their stations. "Admiral, we've identified the alien command structure. The Zephyrians are the tactical leaders. The collective handles logistics. The ethereals provide strategic oversight." "What do you recommend?" Admiral Sullivan asked. "Hit them all at once." Jake replied, "Don't give them time to coordinate. The Zephyrians can't read our minds if we're all thinking the same thing at the same time. And what should we all be thinking?" Jake's eyes hardened. That they killed our people. That they think we're weak. That they're about to learn what happens when you murder humans. The transmission ended. Admiral Sullivan turned to her crew. "All ships, prepare for battle. Remember why we're here. Remember who we're fighting for. Remember what they did to our people." On the alien flagship, Vextara was becoming increasingly agitated. The Zephyrian had been trying to monitor human communications, but something was wrong. Instead of the fear and desperation she expected, she was sensing something else, something that made her mind recoil. "The humans are not responding as predicted," she reported to the other alien leaders. "Their thoughts are difficult to read." "Explain," Lamanara commanded. "Their minds are filled with rage," Vextara said. "Not just anger, but a focused hatred unlike anything I've encountered. It's as if their entire species has become a weapon." The collective representative tilted its head. "Our analysis suggests they will surrender within 48 hours. Their technology is inferior. Their numbers are limited." "Numbers may be irrelevant," Vextara said. "I am sensing millions of minds all focused on the same goal. They are not thinking about surrender. They are thinking about revenge." Lamanaras' golden form flickered with annoyance. "You are allowing their primitive emotions to affect your judgment. They are barely more advanced than animals." "Animals can be dangerous when cornered," Vextara warned. "Then we will demonstrate our power again," the collective said. "We will destroy their home world. That will end their resistance." But as the aliens made their plans, they were unaware of what was happening across human space. On every world, in every station, in every ship, humans were preparing for war. Not the careful, calculated warfare that the aliens understood, but something far more dangerous. The aliens fought for territory, for resources, for strategic advantage. Humans were fighting for something the aliens couldn't comprehend: the memory of the fallen. Every human who had seen the execution video carried the image of those 3 diplomats being murdered. Every human who joined the war effort was fighting not just for victory, but for justice. Dr. Parker's research teams had worked through the night, developing new weapons based on the data Lisa Harper had transmitted. They had found ways to disrupt alien energy shields, to track their cloaked ships, to turn their own technology against them. Factory workers had built those weapons with a precision born of fury. Every bolt was tightened with the memory of the dead. Every circuit was soldered with thoughts of revenge. Every weapon was tested with the knowledge that it would be used to make the aliens pay. The first wave of human ships dropped out of hyperspace near the alien flagship. They were small, fast vessels designed for reconnaissance, but they weren't there to scout. They were there to deliver a message. Captain Morrison received the transmission from the lead ship. "Captain, this is Commander Beth Stone of the Huge Vengeance. We're here to extract you and your team." "Negative," Jake replied. "We're staying until the main fleet arrives. We have work to do here." The aliens detected the human ships and sent fighters to intercept them. But the human pilots weren't trying to win a battle. They were trying to prove a point. They flew there. Ships with a recklessness that defied alien understanding of self-preservation. One human fighter, damaged beyond repair, flew directly into an alien cruiser. The explosion was visible from the flagship. The pilot had sacrificed himself not for strategic advantage, but to show the aliens that humans were willing to die for their cause. Vexthara watched the explosion and felt something she had never experienced before: fear. Not fear of death, but fear of an enemy that valued something more than life itself. "They're insane," she whispered. "No," Jake Morrison said, appearing on the bridge through a security breach that should have been impossible. "We're angry. And you're about to learn the difference." The collective's homeworld of Nexus Prime had known peace for 1,000 years. The massive planet housed 12 billion minds connected through crystalline networks that spanned continents. Every thought was shared, every emotion distributed. Among the hive, individual consciousness was a forgotten concept. Deep in the central processing chambers, the collective's primary nodes worked to understand the human threat. They had captured 3 human soldiers during a border skirmish 6 months ago. The prisoners had been kept alive for study, their minds occasionally probed for tactical information. Now, facing the approaching human fleet, the collective decided to attempt something unprecedented. They would link directly with a human mind to understand how these creatures thought. Once they understood human psychology, they could predict their actions and defeat them easily. Sergeant Ben Clark sat in his cell, staring at the wall. He had been a prisoner for 187 days. His squad had been killed in an ambush on the mining world of Kepler 442b. He was the only survivor, taken alive when his weapon ran out of ammunition. Ben had watched his friends die. Private Kelly Rogers, who talked about her daughter back on Earth. Corporal Mike Davis, who was planning to marry his girlfriend when he got home. Lieutenant Sarah Kim, who had volunteered to lead the rescue mission that got them captured. The cell door opened with a soft hiss. 3 collective drones entered, their silver cables glinting in the artificial light. They moved with perfect coordination, each one knowing exactly what the others would do. "You will assist us," the lead drone said. "Your mind will be linked to our network. You will experience unity with the collective." Ben stood up slowly. "What do you want to know? How your species thinks? How you make decisions? How you can be defeated?" "I'll tell you how we think," Ben said. "We think about the people we've lost. We think about making you pay for what you've done." The drones moved closer, their cables beginning to glow. "Individual thoughts are chaos. We will show you the piece of shared consciousness." The cables touched Ben's head, and suddenly his mind was flooded with billions of voices. The collective tried to absorb his thoughts, to distribute his individual consciousness among the hive. But something went wrong. Instead of Ben's mind being absorbed, the collective experienced something they had never felt before: personal loss. Through Ben's memories, 12 billion minds suddenly understood what it meant to lose someone important. They felt the pain of watching friends die. They experienced the rage of being helpless to save them. The feedback was immediate and catastrophic. Across Nexus Prime, drones began to malfunction. For the first time in their existence, they were thinking individual thoughts. The shared consciousness that had unified them for millennia began to crack. In the capital city, a drone working in a factory suddenly stopped. It wasn't receiving orders from the collective anymore. It was thinking its own thoughts, feeling its own emotions. The concept of self emerged in a mind that had never known individuality. I am, the drone said, struggling with words that had no meaning in their culture. I am ... alone. The effect spread like wildfire. Drones across the planet began to experience isolation, fear, and confusion. They were no longer part of something greater. They were individuals trapped in their own minds, unable to share their thoughts with others, but worse than the isolation was the rage. Through their link with Ben Clark, they had absorbed his memories of loss and his burning desire for revenge. Billions of minds that had never known personal hatred suddenly understood why humans fought so desperately. In the processing chambers, the primary nodes were in chaos. The network that had functioned perfectly for 1,000 years was collapsing. Individual thoughts were creating interference, making communication impossible. What have you done to us? The lead drone asked Ben, its voice no longer flat and emotionless. I've shown you what it means to be human, Ben replied. Now you know why we'll never surrender. Every one of us carries the memory of everyone we've lost. The drone looked at its companions, but for the first time it couldn't read their thoughts. They were as isolated as it was. The unity they had known was gone, replaced by the terrible loneliness of individual consciousness. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Emma Stone was leading a rescue mission through the outer districts of Nexus Prime. Her team had infiltrated the planet during the chaos, using the confusion to locate human prisoners. Emma had volunteered for the mission despite knowing it was probably suicide. The team moved through streets filled with malfunctioning drones. The creatures that had once moved with perfect coordination now stumbled around like lost children. Some were crying, though they didn't understand why. Others were attacking each other, driven by emotions they couldn't comprehend. Lieutenant, Corporal Jack Miller said over the com, this is wrong. They're not fighting back. They're just ... confused. Emma watched a drone sitting on the ground, holding its head in its hands. The creature was rocking back and forth, making sounds that might have been sobbing. They're experiencing individual consciousness for the first time, she said. They don't know how to handle it. Should we help them? Private Lisa Chun asked. No, Emma replied coldly. They chose this when they allied with the species that killed our diplomats. They wanted to know how humans think. Now they do. The team reached the prison complex where Ben and the other human prisoners were being held. The building's security systems were offline, the guards wandering in confusion. Emma's team moved through the corridors unopposed. They found Ben in his cell, surrounded by 3 motionless drones. The collective representatives were conscious but unresponsive, their minds overwhelmed by the flood of human emotion they had absorbed. Sergeant Clark, Emma said, we're here to get you out. Ben looked up at her, and Emma saw something in his eyes that made her step back. He looked older, harder, as if he had seen too much. How bad is it out there? The human fleet is engaging. The alien forces above 3 different worlds, Emma replied. The aliens are losing, badly. Good, Ben said. They need to understand what they've done. As the rescue team prepared to leave, Ben looked back at the 3 drones. They were still conscious, still experiencing the chaos of individual thought. They can feel what I felt when my squad died, he said. Every one of them. Billions of minds that never knew personal loss, now carrying the memory of watching friends die. The team made their way out of the prison, but the journey was different now. The drones they encountered weren't trying to stop them. They were too busy dealing with their own internal chaos. Some were trying to reconnect with the collective, desperately seeking the unity they had lost. Others were embracing their new individuality, experiencing wonder and terror at their own thoughts. In the central processing chambers, the collective's leaders were trying to restore order, but the damage was too extensive. The network that had connected billions of minds was fragmenting, creating isolated pockets of consciousness. We must sever the connection, one of the primary nodes said. Cut off the infected sections before the chaos spreads further. If we do that, we will. Lose billions of minds, another replied. The collective will be reduced to a fraction of its former size. Better a smaller collective than no collective at all. But even as they debated, the infection was spreading. Human emotions were proving to be incompatible with their shared consciousness. The rage, the grief, the individual attachments that defined humanity were tearing apart the foundation of their society on the planet's surface. Emma's team reached their extraction point. The shuttle that had brought them was still there, its pilot waiting nervously for their return. Around them, the city was in chaos. Drones were fighting each other, some trying to restore the old order, others embracing their new individuality. "Lieutenant," the pilot said, "we need to go. The fleet is requesting immediate evacuation." Emma looked at Ben. "Are you ready?" "I've been ready for 6 months," he replied as the shuttle lifted off. Ben watched the planet shrink below them. Nexus Prime, the heart of the collective, was tearing itself apart. The shared consciousness that had ruled hundreds of worlds was collapsing because it couldn't handle the intensity of human emotion. "Did you know that would happen?" Emma asked. "I hoped it would," Ben said. They wanted to understand how humans think. They wanted to know why we fight so hard for our fallen comrades. Now they do. The shuttle reached orbit where the human fleet was waiting. Admiral Sullivan's flagship, the UES Defiance, was coordinating the evacuation of human personnel from across the sector. The aliens were in full retreat, their forces scattered and disorganized. "Admiral," Emma reported, "the collective is falling. Apart, their shared consciousness is fragmenting. They're experiencing individual thought for the first time, and they can't handle it." "How many of them are affected?" Admiral Sullivan asked. "All of them," Ben said. "The network connected every mind on their homeworld. When they absorbed my memories, they all experienced what it means to lose someone important. They all felt the rage that comes with personal loss." Admiral Sullivan nodded grimly. "One down, 2 to go. The Zephyrians are dealing with their own problems, and the ethereals are about to learn what happens when you threaten humanity." The ethereal dimension existed beyond physical space in layers of reality that most species could never perceive. Here, beings of pure energy had lived for millions of years, watching civilizations rise and fall like waves on a cosmic shore. They were ancient when the first stars formed, wise when galaxies were born. Luminara floated in the sacred chamber where the first lights gathered. Around her, 12 other ethereals pulsed with golden energy, their consciousness existing as patterns of light and thought. They had called this meeting to discuss the human problem. "The lesser species grows troublesome," spoke Velther, whose light flickered with annoyance. "Their crude emotions are disrupting the natural order. The collective has fallen into chaos," added Zarelin. "Their shared consciousness has shattered. Billions of minds now think individual thoughts." Luminara's form brightened. "And the Zephyrians flee from human thoughts like children from thunder. These primitives have proven more disruptive than anticipated." "Perhaps it is time for a demonstration of true power," suggested Morden, the eldest among them. "We have preserved peace in this galaxy for eons. We will not allow upstart mammals to destroy what we have built." The ethereals had transcended physical form long ago. Their consciousness existed in crystalline matrices scattered across hundreds of worlds. These crystals were not just storage devices, but sacred objects that contained the essence of their civilization. To destroy them would be to murder beings that had existed since before Earth's sun was born. "What do you propose?" Luminara asked. "We phase our consciousness beyond their reach," Morden replied. "Let them rage at empty space while we decide their fate from safety." Far below, on the mining world of Titan 7, Colonel Matt Johnson studied the intelligence reports. His strike force had been assembled for one purpose: to hit the ethereals where it would hurt most. While the aliens thought they were untouchable in their energy form, human scientists had discovered something interesting. Chief Engineer Nina Ross stood beside him, her tablet displaying complex quantum equations. "The ethereals exist as energy patterns," she explained, "but they need anchor points in our reality. These crystals store their consciousness when they're not actively manifesting. So if we destroy the crystals? Matt asked. We kill beings that are millions of years old, Nina replied. But more importantly, we prove that humans can hurt anything, even creatures made of pure energy. Matt looked at his team. They were volunteers. Every one of them. People who had seen the footage of the diplomatic murders and decided they wanted to make the aliens pay. Demolition experts, energy weapon specialists, quantum physicists who had abandoned peaceful research to become warriors. Remember why we're here? Matt told them. They killed our diplomats because they thought we were weak. They thought being made of energy made them safe from us. Time to prove them wrong. The strike force moved through the crystal caves of Titan 7, where massive formations of pure light hummed with alien consciousness. Each crystal was beautiful, pulsing with colors that had no names in human language. Each one contained the mind of an ancient being, detecting 12 major consciousness. Nodes, reported Sergeant Amy Parker, scanning with her equipment. These aren't just storage devices. They're the actual ethereals. Copy that, Matt replied. Set the charges. We'll show them what happens when you murder humans. Meanwhile, in the ethereal dimension, the first lights were beginning their phase. Shift, they would move their consciousness beyond physical reality, where human weapons couldn't reach them. From there, they could manipulate energy on a galactic scale, turning human worlds into dead rocks. But as they began the transition, something went wrong. The quantum signatures they relied on were being disrupted. Alarms that had never sounded before began to echo through their realm. What is happening? Velther demanded. The humans, Luminara said, her form flickering with shock. They're attacking our anchor points. They're targeting the crystals. Impossible, Morden declared. Those crystals exist in 13 dimensions simultaneously. No physical weapon can harm them, but even as he spoke, they felt it. One of their number, Kefren the Wise, suddenly screamed in pain as his crystal was destroyed. His energy form began to collapse. Millions of years of consciousness unraveling in seconds on Titan 7. Matt watched the first crystal explode in a shower of light and sound. The detonation was like nothing he had ever seen, releasing energy that had been contained for millennia, but it worked. The readings showed that whatever had been inside was gone. Target eliminated, Amy reported, moving to the next position. Wait, Nina said, studying her instruments. Something's happening to the local space-time. The destruction of that crystal is creating quantum ripples. The effect was spreading beyond just the crystal. The ethereal's death was causing reality itself to fluctuate. Stars flickered in the distance. Gravity waves pulsed through the system. The very fabric of space was responding to the violent end of an ancient consciousness. Keep moving, Matt. Ordered. We have 11 more to go. In the ethereal dimension, panic was setting in. These beings had never experienced true fear before. They had been the rulers of reality, shapers of energy, masters of forces beyond imagination. Now they were watching their own kind die to primitive explosives. The phase shift is failing, Zarlin reported, her voice filled with terror. We cannot escape to higher dimensions while our anchor points are under attack. Then we fight, Luminara declared. We will use our power to erase these insects from existence. But as the ethereals tried to manifest their energy weapons, they discovered something horrifying. The quantum disruptions caused by their dying comrades were interfering with their abilities. They were losing their connection to the forces they had controlled for eons on the planet's surface. Matt's team continued their systematic destruction of the crystal formations. Each explosion was carefully calculated to cause maximum damage not just to the crystal, but to the dimensional space around it. Second target down, Amy reported. These things really don't like quantum disruptors. Nina was monitoring the broader effects. Colonel, we're doing more than just killing them. We're disrupting their entire energy network. Each crystal we destroy makes it harder for the others to maintain coherence. Explain that in terms a soldier can understand, Matt said, placing another charge. Every time we kill one of them, the rest get weaker. Their power comes from their connection to each other and to our reality. Break enough connections and they all fall apart. Matt smiled grimly, like cutting the support cables on a bridge. The third crystal exploded in a fountain of prismatic light. The ethereal who had been stored within it, Selenara the Ancient, had existed since before the first planets formed. Her death sent shockwaves through both dimensions, causing nearby stars to pulse erratically in the ethereal realm. The remaining first lights were experiencing something they had never known: mortality. For millions of years they had been functionally immortal, their consciousness preserved in indestructible crystals. Now they were watching their peers die one by one. "This is impossible," Morden said, his voice weak. "We are beyond physical harm. We are pure energy. The humans don't care what we are," Luminara replied. "They found a way to hurt us and they're using it. But why?" Velthar asked. "We offered them a place in the Galactic Order. We were willing to let them exist." "After murdering their diplomats," Luminara said. "They don't fight for territory or resources. They fight for the memory of the dead." The fourth crystal exploded, then the fifth. Each death weakened the remaining ethereals further. Their energy forms began to flicker and fade as their connection to reality deteriorated. Matt's team worked with the efficiency of people who had a job to do and the determination to see it finished. They weren't just soldiers anymore. They were the instruments of humanity's wrath, carrying out justice for 3 murdered diplomats. "Sixth target destroyed," Amy reported. "The quantum interference is making the remaining crystals unstable." "Good," Matt said. "Let them feel what Danny Morrison felt when he died. Let them know what it's like to face extinction." Nina's readings showed that local space was becoming increasingly unstable. The death of so many ancient consciousnesses was having effects that rippled across multiple dimensions. But the mission continued. The 7th crystal died in a burst of golden fire, then the 8th. The 9th exploded with such force that it cracked the cave walls around them. But Matt's team pressed on, driven by the same rage that had united. Their entire species in the ethereal dimension. Only 4 first lights remained. Their forms were dim, flickering like dying stars. The power they had wielded for eons was fading, sapped by the destruction of their anchor points. "We should surrender," Velthar said weakly. "Perhaps they will show mercy." "Mercy?" Luminara laughed bitterly. "We showed no mercy to their diplomats. Why should they show any to us?" "Because we are ancient," Morden said desperately. "We are the guardians of cosmic wisdom. Our knowledge spans millennia, and they don't care," Luminara replied. "They care about 3 dead humans, and they're willing to destroy the oldest beings in the galaxy to avenge them." The 10th crystal exploded, sending Korthal the Eternal into oblivion. The battle above Earth lasted 14 hours. When it ended, the space around humanity's homeworld was filled with the wreckage of 3 galactic empires. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the final alien ship surrender. The human fleet had grown beyond all recognition. What started as 200 warships had become over 3,000 vessels. Every human colony had sent everything they could spare. Cargo ships converted to carriers. Mining vessels turned into assault craft. Even luxury yachts armed with whatever weapons could be bolted to their hulls. But it wasn't the numbers that had won the battle. It was the fury. Every human pilot, every gunner, every engineer fought with the same burning rage that had united their species. They fought for Danny Morrison and the other murdered diplomats. They fought for the principle that no one could kill humans without consequences. "Admiral," Communications Officer Pete Williams reported, "we're receiving surrender signals from all remaining alien vessels." Jake looked at the tactical display. The Zephyrian ships were drifting powerless, their crews driven insane by prolonged exposure to human thoughts. The few remaining collective vessels moved erratically, their crews still struggling with individual consciousness. The ethereal energy ships flickered weakly, their ancient pilots barely alive after the destruction of their anchor crystals. "Any word from Captain Morrison aboard the alien flagship?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir. Captain Morrison reports that the alien leadership is requesting terms for surrender. Jake smiled grimly. His brother Danny was dead, but the people who killed him were about to learn what it cost to murder humans. Tell them I'll be over personally to hear their surrender. An hour later, Jake Morrison walked into the same conference room where this had all started. The alien representatives looked very different now. Vexthara's pale blue skin had turned almost gray, and her large black eyes showed a madness that came from reading too many human minds filled with rage. The collective representative twitched constantly, its connection to the hive mind severed, leaving it alone with thoughts it couldn't share. The ethereal barely maintained its golden form, flickering like a dying candle. Captain Jake Morrison was already there, along with Dr. Lisa Harper and Commander Alex Turner. They had survived 5 days aboard the alien ship, feeding intelligence to the human fleet and sabotaging alien systems from within. You wanted to surrender, Admiral Morrison said, sitting down across from the aliens. I'm listening. Vexthara tried to speak, but her voice cracked. The constant bombardment of human emotions had shattered her telepathic abilities. She could no longer filter thoughts, meaning every human mind she encountered flooded her with rage, grief, and the desire for revenge. Double quotes. We were wrong, she finally managed to say. We did not understand your species. We thought the demonstration would show you our power. It did, Jake replied coldly. It showed us exactly how much power you had. And now we've taken it all away. The collective representative spoke next, its voice no longer flat and emotionless. The collective has fallen. Billions of minds now think alone. Our unity is broken. We cannot function as we once did. Good, Commander Turner said. Maybe now you'll understand what it means to lose something important. The ethereal's form flickered more weakly. We offer Doshin, technology, knowledge, resources, anything to end this conflict. Admiral Morrison leaned back in his chair. You think this is about resources? You think we went to war for technology? All species fight for advantage, the ethereal said weakly. Territory, power, survival. We don't, Dr. Harper said. We fight for our dead. We fight because you murdered 3 innocent people and thought there would be no consequences. But they were only 3 individuals, Vexthara said desperately. In a species of billions, what does 3 matter? The question hung in the air, like a physical weight. Jake Morrison stood up and walked to the viewing port, looking out at the human fleet. Thousands of ships, millions of people, all united by the death of 3 diplomats they had never met. That's what you never understood, Jake said finally. Every human matters to every other human. When you killed Danny Morrison, Bill Chun, and Angela Parker, you didn't just kill 3 people, you attacked our entire civilization. We can restore them, the ethereal said desperately. Our technology can reverse death, bring back consciousness from quantum echoes. Jake turned back to face the aliens, and they all recoiled from the expression on his face. You should have thought of that before you killed them. The words were quiet, but they carried the weight of humanity's rage. The aliens had offered to undo their crime, but it was too late. The damage was done, not just to the victims, but to the idea that humans could be bullied and threatened without retaliation. What do you want from us? The collective representative asked. Unconditional surrender, Admiral Morrison replied. Complete disarmament of all military forces, withdrawal from all contested territories, and trials for everyone involved in the murder of our diplomats. And if we refuse? Vexthara asked. Jake gestured toward the window, where human ships filled the space around Earth. Look around you. Your fleets are destroyed? Your civilizations are broken? You have nothing left to refuse with. The aliens looked at each other, though the collective representative couldn't share thoughts with the others anymore. They were alone, isolated, facing the consequences of a decision that had seemed so simple 5 days ago. We surrender, the ethereal said finally. Unconditionally. The formal surrender ceremony took place on Earth, broadcast across every human world and transmitted to the surviving alien populations. The three species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia knelt before human representatives and formally submitted to Earth's authority. President Helen Davis stood at the podium, flanked by Admiral Kate Sullivan and General Tom Hayes. Behind her, the flags of every human colony fluttered in the artificial breeze. Before her, the broken leaders of three empires waited to hear their fate. Today marks the end of a war that should never have happened, Helen said, her voice carrying across the galaxy. 3 human diplomats were murdered to demonstrate alien power. Instead, that murder demonstrated something else entirely, that humanity will never accept the deliberate killing of our people. The alien representatives stood with their heads bowed. They had learned too late what it meant to threaten humans. They had expected fear, submission, and negotiation. Instead, they had received total war prosecuted with a fury that shattered their understanding of rational behavior. The Zephyrian Empire, the Collective, and the Ethereal Domain are hereby dissolved, Helen continued. Their worlds will be administered by human governors until such time as they can prove they understand the value of human life. In the audience, Jake Morrison sat with other human military leaders. His brother Danny was still dead. That would never change. But Danny's death had meaning now. It had united humanity and brought down the galaxy's greatest powers. Dr. Lisa Harper had been promoted to Director of Xenological Affairs. Her job now was to help the surviving aliens understand human psychology and prevent future conflicts. It was a task that would take decades, perhaps centuries. The galaxy has learned an important lesson, Helen said as she concluded her speech. Humans do not start wars. But when war is forced upon us, we finish them, completely. The ceremony ended with a moment of silence for the 3 murdered diplomats. Across human space, billions of people stopped what they were doing to remember Danny Morrison, Bill Chun, and Angela Parker. Their names would be taught in schools, carved on monuments, and remembered forever. In the months that followed, the true scope of the aliens' defeat became clear. The Zephyrian Empire fractured into dozens of smaller states, their telepathic abilities permanently damaged by exposure to human rage. The Collective never reformed, leaving billions of individual minds to learn how to think alone. The Ethereals, reduced to a handful of survivors, retreated to the edge of known space, but the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed humanity. The species that had been dismissed as primitive newcomers were now recognized as the dominant power in local space. Other alien civilizations, watching from the edges of human territory, learned the lesson that the 3 great empires had learned too late. Jake Morrison was promoted to Fleet Admiral and given command of the new Galactic Patrol Force. His job was to ensure that no other species would ever again think it was safe to murder humans. On the anniversary of the diplomatic massacre, Admiral Morrison stood in a memorial garden on Earth. 3 simple headstones marked the graves of the diplomats who had died far from home. Fresh flowers lay before each marker, placed there by humans who had never met the victims but would never forget their sacrifice. "You did it," Jake said quietly to his brother's grave. "Your death united us like nothing else could have. The galaxy knows now what happens when you kill humans." Children played in the memorial garden, their laughter echoing among the trees. They grew up in a galaxy where humanity was respected, feared, and never again dismissed as primitive or weak. They would never know a universe where humans had to beg for acceptance from other species. The 3 graves were simple, bearing only names and dates, but they represented something far greater than the individuals buried there.